Little girl calls 911 at her mother's grave. A millionaire sees it and makes a decision. Before we dive in, let's light up this comment section with hearts from every corner of the world. The July sun blazed mercilessly over Oakwood Cemetery as 7-year-old Sophia Martinez clutched the wilted daisies she'd picked from Grandma Charlotte's garden. Her small feet moved carefully between the weathered headstones, her heart pounding with each step. She'd waited for this moment all week, ever since she'd overheard Mrs. Henderson from next door mention that children shouldn't visit graves alone. But Sophia couldn't wait any longer. The dreams about Mommy had been getting stronger, more vivid, and last night Emily had appeared so clearly, beckoning her daughter to come. Charlotte, her 65-year-old grandmother, had been sleeping deeply after her heart medication, and Sophia had slipped out through the back door like a whisper. "Section J, row 12, she whispered, reading the numbers she'd memorized from the funeral program she'd hidden under her mattress. The cemetery stretched endlessly before her, its silence broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the occasional crow's call. Theodore Walsh stood frozen near his mother's grave, the fresh roses in his hands trembling. At 43, he'd made this pilgrimage every month for the past 5 years, ever since Margaret Walsh had lost her battle with cancer. But today something was different. A small figure moved through the cemetery with purpose, her long, dark hair catching the sunlight. When Sophia finally reached her mother's grave, she gasped. The headstone that should have read, Emily Rose Martinez, beloved mother and daughter 1982-2023, was partially obscured by something that made her blood turn cold. Fresh dirt had been disturbed, and there were deep gouges in the earth around the grave, as if someone had been digging. But that wasn't what made her scream. Lying partially buried near the headstone was a woman's gold bracelet, one Sophia recognized immediately. It was the same bracelet Emily had worn every day, the one Charlotte said had been buried with her. Yet here it was, gleaming in the dirt, as if someone had pulled it from the grave itself. Sophia's trembling fingers reached for her grandmother's old flip phone as she dialed 911, her voice breaking with terror. "Please help me," she whispered into the device. Someone has been digging up my mommy." From across the cemetery, Theodore heard the child's desperate voice carrying on the wind. He began walking toward her, compelled by something he couldn't name. As he drew closer, his breath caught in his throat. The little girl's profile, the curve of her small nose, the way she tilted her head when she was scared. It was Emily. It was unmistakably Emily Martinez, the girl he'd loved with all his teenage heart 27 years ago. The phone slipped from Sophia's hand as she saw the tall man approaching. But Theodore wasn't looking at her with menace. His weathered face was painted with shock, recognition, and something that looked remarkably like grief. "You're Emily's daughter," he said softly. And it wasn't a question. 27 years earlier, Riverside High School buzzed with the energy of autumn 1998. 16-year-old Theodore Walsh pushed through the crowded hallway, his backpack heavy with textbooks, when he collided with a petite girl carrying an armload of art supplies, paint scattered across the linoleum floor like a rainbow explosion. "I'm so sorry," Emily Martinez laughed, dropping to her knees to gather the tubes. Her dark eyes sparkled with mischief, and Theodore found himself mesmerized by the paint smudge on her cheek. "I was rushing to art class. Mrs. Patterson gets really cranky when we're late." Theodore knelt beside her, helping collect the scattered supplies. "You're new here," he observed, noting her slight accent and the way she seemed to take in everything with wonder. "Where did you move from?" "Phoenix. My mom got a job at the hospital here." Emily's smile dimmed slightly. "It's just the two of us. My dad, he left when I was little. Mom says we're better off, but sometimes..." She shrugged, then brightened again. "But hey, new town, new possibilities, right?" Over the following weeks, Theodore found excuses to walk past the art room, hoping to catch glimpses of Emily at work. She painted with a passion that took his breath away, her entire being focused on the canvas before her. When he finally gathered courage to ask her to the homecoming dance, she surprised him by saying yes before he'd even finished the question. "I was wondering when you'd ask," she teased, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've seen you lurking by my locker every morning for 3 weeks." Their relationship blossomed like spring flowers after winter's end. Emily brought color to Theodore's structured world, while he provided the stability she'd never known. They would sit for hours in the school courtyard, Emily sketching while Theodore read aloud from his favorite books. She painted him once, capturing something in his eyes that he'd never seen in a mirror. A tenderness, a depth of feeling that surprised him. "You're going to do great things," Emily would tell him, running her paint-stained fingers through his hair. "I can see it in you. You have this strength, this goodness. Promise me you'll never lose that." But their love story was fragile, built in the shadow of Emily's mother's declining health. Maria Martinez had been fighting cancer, a battle she'd hidden from her daughter until it was nearly over. When Emily finally learned the truth in their senior year, everything changed. "I have to go back to Phoenix," she told Theodore through tears one cold February evening. "My Aunt Rosa is there, and Mom. The doctors say she doesn't have long. I can't leave her." Theodore held her as she sobbed, both of them knowing this was goodbye. They were 18, with college acceptance letters and dreams that seemed to require different paths. Emily left Riverside on a gray March morning, promising to write, to call, to never forget. But life, as it often does, intervened with cruel efficiency. Charlotte Martinez jolted awake to silence, the kind of absolute quiet that only comes when something essential is missing. At 65, her maternal instincts remained razor-sharp despite her failing heart. The house felt empty in a way that made her chest tighten with panic. "Sophia," she called, her voice echoing through the small two-bedroom house they'd shared since Emily's death 18 months ago. No response. Charlotte's bare feet hit the hardwood floor, her heart medication making her movements slightly unsteady as she rushed to Sophia's room. The bed was empty, covers thrown back hastily. Sophia's favorite stuffed elephant sat abandoned on the pillow, and Charlotte's blood ran cold. In all their time together, Sophia had never left that elephant behind, not even for trips to the grocery store. Charlotte's mind raced as she checked every room, every closet, every possible hiding spot. The back door stood slightly ajar, and she knew. Somehow she just knew where her granddaughter had gone. The phone call to 911 was a blur of frantic explanations and desperate pleas. "My granddaughter is missing. She's 7 years old, and I think she might have gone to Oakwood Cemetery. Her mother is buried there. And she's been having nightmares." Officer Maria Santos arrived within minutes, her kind eyes immediately assessing Charlotte's distressed state. At 35, Santos had worked missing children cases before, and she recognized the specific terror of a caregiver who knew their child was in danger. "Mrs. Martinez, I need you to think carefully. Has Sophia ever mentioned wanting to visit her mother's grave? Has she been acting differently lately?" Charlotte sank into her worn armchair, hands shaking. "She's been asking questions. About Emily, about how she died, about why we can't visit more often. My heart condition. I can't walk those long distances in the cemetery. I told her we'd go when I felt better, but children don't understand waiting." Officer Santos finished gently. "We're going to find her, Mrs. Martinez. I have units heading to the cemetery now." What Charlotte couldn't tell the officer was the real reason she'd been avoiding the cemetery. Emily's death hadn't been the simple car accident they'd told Sophia. The truth was far more complicated, wrapped in secrets that Charlotte had hoped would die with her daughter. Emily had returned to Riverside 3 years ago, pregnant and alone, refusing to name Sophia's father. She'd been different, haunted, constantly looking over her shoulder as if expecting someone to find her. When she died in that crash on Highway 15, the police had ruled it accidental. But Charlotte had seen the brake marks, the evidence that someone might have forced Emily off the road. The phone rang, jarring Charlotte from her dark thoughts. "Mrs. Martinez, this is dispatch. We found your granddaughter at the cemetery and she's safe. But there's been a situation. Can you meet us at Oakwood Cemetery immediately?" Charlotte's heart hammered against her ribs as she fumbled for her car keys. Whatever Sophia had discovered at Emily's grave, Charlotte feared it might finally bring the past crashing down around them. Some secrets, she realized with growing dread, refused to stay buried. Detective Ryan Cooper had seen disturbed graves before, but never one this personal. At 48, With 20 years on the force, he'd developed an instinct for cases that would keep him awake at night. This one already had that feel. Sophia sat in the back of Officer Santos's patrol car, wrapped in an emergency blanket despite the July heat, her dark eyes wide with shock. Nearby, Theodore Walsh answered questions with a distracted air, his gaze constantly drifting back to the little girl as if he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. "Mr. Walsh, you said you were visiting your mother's grave when you heard the child call 911. Detective Cooper's pen hovered over his notepad, studying Theodore's reactions carefully. "That's right. Section B, about 50 yards from where we found Sophia. I come here monthly." Theodore's voice was steady, but Cooper noticed the slight tremor in his hands. "When I heard her crying, I came to help. That's when I saw..." He gestured toward Emily's disturbed grave. Cooper knelt beside the grave, examining the evidence. The bracelet Sophia had found was clearly valuable, 18-karat gold with an intricate rose design. More troubling were the tool marks in the earth, suggesting someone had used professional excavation equipment. This wasn't random vandalism. "The bracelet," Cooper said to Officer Santos. "The child is certain it belonged to her mother." "Positive. Says her grandmother described it to her many times. Apparently it was Emily Martinez's most treasured possession." Santos glanced toward the patrol car where Sophia waited. "The kid's traumatized, but she's sharp. Her description of finding it was very detailed." Theodore stepped closer, his face pale. "Detective, I knew Emily Martinez. We dated in high school, 27 years ago. I lost track of her after graduation, but seeing her daughter..." He ran a hand through his graying hair. "It's like seeing Emily again." This information sent Cooper's investigative instincts into overdrive. "Mr. Walsh, I'm going to need you to come to the station for a more detailed statement. And I want you to think very carefully about the last time you had any contact with Emily Martinez." Charlotte's old Honda pulled into the cemetery parking lot with a squeal of brakes. Cooper watched as the elderly woman hurried toward them, her face etched with worry and something else. Fear, perhaps, or guilt. She embraced Sophia with desperate relief, but her eyes kept darting between Theodore and the disturbed grave. "Mrs. Martinez," Cooper approached carefully. "I'm Detective Cooper. Your granddaughter found evidence that someone has disturbed your daughter's grave. We need to ask you some questions about Emily's life, particularly in the months before her death." Charlotte's grip on Sophia tightened. "I don't understand. Who would do such a thing? Emily was a good person. She made some mistakes, but she didn't deserve this." "What kind of mistakes, Mrs. Martinez?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Charlotte spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Emily came back to Riverside 3 years ago. She was pregnant, scared, and she wouldn't tell me who the father was. Said it was safer if I didn't know. When Sophia was born, Emily made me promise that if anything happened to her, I would never try to find Sophia's father." Theodore went very still. Cooper noticed the reaction immediately. "Mr. Walsh, is there something you'd like to add to your statement?" The Riverside Police Station's interview room felt suffocating despite the aggressive air conditioning. Theodore sat across from Detective Cooper, his coffee growing cold as memories he'd buried for decades clawed their way to the surface. "I need you to understand," Theodore began, his voice carefully controlled. "When Emily left for Phoenix in 1998, I thought that was the end of our story. I went to college, built a career, got married, got divorced. I never knew she'd come back." Cooper leaned forward, studying Theodore's face for tells. "But you did have contact with her after high school, didn't you, Mr. Walsh?" Theodore's composure cracked slightly. "One time, just once. It was 2019, about 3 years ago. I was at a conference in Denver, and I saw her at the hotel bar. She was..." He paused, remembering. "She was different. Scared. When she saw me, she actually looked terrified. Tell me exactly what happened during that encounter." I approached her, tried to talk about old times, but she kept looking around like someone might be watching. She told me she couldn't be seen with me, that it was dangerous. When I asked why, she said some people from her past were looking for her, people who would hurt anyone she cared about. Cooper made notes, his pen scratching across the paper with urgent precision. Did she mention Sophia? Theodore's breath caught. She said she had a daughter, that the little girl was the most important thing in her life. She showed me a picture. His voice broke slightly. God, Cooper, Sophia looks exactly like Emily did at that age. Those same dark eyes, that stubborn chin. Mr. Walsh, I need you to think very carefully about your next answer. Is there any possibility that Sophia could be your daughter? The question hung in the air like smoke. Theodore's face went through a series of emotions: shock, calculation, desperate hope, and finally, honest uncertainty. The timing. It's possible. If Emily got pregnant right after we saw each other in Denver. But she never said anything, never even hinted. He looked up at Cooper with haunted eyes. Do you think that's why someone disturbed her grave? Because they're looking for evidence about Sophia's paternity? Meanwhile, in the station's family room, Charlotte sat with Sophia, trying to explain why they couldn't go home yet. The little girl clutched her stuffed elephant, finally reunited with her comfort object. But her questions were relentless. Grandma Charlotte, why was Mommy's bracelet in the dirt? Did someone steal it from her? Charlotte stroked Sophia's hair, her heart breaking with each innocent question. The truth was, Charlotte had always suspected there was more to Emily's death than a simple accident. Her daughter had been receiving strange phone calls in the weeks before she died, and she'd started carrying a small handgun that she'd hidden from Sophia. Sometimes, sweetheart, grown-ups have complicated problems that children shouldn't worry about. But I heard that man say he knew Mommy, the man at the cemetery. He looked at me funny. Charlotte's blood chilled. If Theodore Walsh was Sophia's father, and if the wrong people discovered that connection, both Theodore and Sophia could be in danger. Emily had died protecting a secret, and now that secret was unraveling in the worst possible way. Officer Santos appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Martinez, Detective Cooper would like to speak with you now. We have some new information about Emily's case. The manila folder Detective Cooper placed on the table was thin, but Charlotte recognized the weight of secrets it contained. Her hands trembled as she looked at the crime scene photos from Emily's accident, seeing details she'd been shielded from 18 months ago. Mrs. Martinez, we're reopening your daughter's case. The grave disturbance today suggests someone is looking for something specific, and we believe Emily's death may not have been accidental. Cooper's voice was gentle but firm. I need you to tell me everything Emily confided about why she came back to Riverside. Charlotte closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her promise to Emily dissolving under the pressure of protecting Sophia. Emily was running from someone. She'd gotten involved with dangerous people in Phoenix after her mother died. People who used her art forgery skills for illegal purposes. Art forgery? Emily was incredibly talented. She could reproduce any painting style perfectly. After her mother died and she was struggling financially, someone approached her about copying famous works. She thought it was legitimate at first. Museum reproductions, she said. But then she learned the truth. Cooper wrote rapidly. Who were these people? She never told me names, but she called them the Collective. They were selling her forgeries as authentic pieces to wealthy collectors. When Emily tried to quit, they threatened her. That's when she ran. And Sophia's father? Charlotte's resolve finally cracked. Emily met someone during her last few months in Phoenix. Someone she said could protect her from the Collective. But when she got pregnant, everything changed. She said this man had his own dangerous enemies, and if they knew about Sophia, they would use the baby to get to him. Cooper leaned forward. Mrs. Martinez, do you think Theodore Walsh could be Sophia's father? The timing is right. Emily was exactly 7 months pregnant when she came back to Riverside in early 2020. If she met Theodore in Denver in late 2019, Charlotte's voice trailed off as the implications hit her. There's something else, Cooper said carefully. Theodore Walsh isn't just any businessman. He's a federal prosecutor specializing in art fraud and money laundering. If the Collective discovered that Emily had a child with a federal prosecutor, the blood drained from Charlotte's face. They'd kill them both. Cooper nodded grimly. which means whoever disturbed Emily's grave today might be looking for DNA evidence to confirm Sophia's paternity. We need to get both you and Sophia into protective custody immediately. As if summoned by their conversation, urgent voices erupted from the station's main floor. Officer Santos burst into the interview room, her face flushed with adrenaline. "Detective, we have a problem. 3 men in suits just showed up asking about the cemetery incident. They claim to be federal agents, but their credentials don't check out. And they're specifically asking about the little girl." Cooper was on his feet instantly. "Get Charlotte and Sophia to the safe house now. Use the back exit." Charlotte gripped Cooper's arm. "What about Theodore? If he's really Sophia's father, he's in danger too." "He's already gone," Cooper said grimly. 30 minutes ago, 2 men claiming to be FBI took him from the building. His lawyer says he never saw them before in his life. The truth hit Charlotte like a physical blow. Emily's worst fears were coming true. The collective had found them, and now they had Theodore. Sophia was the only leverage left. The only thing that could force Theodore to cooperate with whatever they wanted. As sirens wailed outside and Charlotte gathered her granddaughter for another desperate flight, one terrible question echoed in her mind. How long could a 7-year-old girl stay hidden from people who had already killed once to protect their secrets? The game of cat and mouse that had cost Emily her life was beginning again, but this time, Sophia was the prize they were all fighting for. The safe house sat nestled in the pine forests outside Riverside, its windows dark except for the soft glow of a single lamp in the kitchen. Charlotte held Sophia close on the worn couch, both of them listening to every creak and whisper of the old house settling around them. Deputy Marshal Jennifer Hayes, a stern woman in her 40s, paced by the window with her radio crackling softly. "Still no word on Walsh's location," she reported to Cooper via encrypted channel. "But we intercepted chatter suggesting the collective is planning something big for tomorrow night." Sophia looked up at her grandmother with eyes too old for her 7 years. "Grandma, is the man from the cemetery really my daddy?" Charlotte's heart clenched. How do you explain to a child that her father might be a stranger who could either save or doom them all? "We don't know yet, sweetheart. But if he is, he's a good man. Your mommy loved him very much when they were young. Why didn't mommy tell me about him?" Sometimes grown-ups make hard choices to protect the people they love. Your mommy thought keeping it secret would keep you safe. Deputy Hayes approached them, her expression grim. "Mrs. Martinez, we need to discuss contingency plans. If the collective has Walsh, they'll use him to flush you out. They know you're the only family Sophia has left." Charlotte's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Charlotte, this is Theodore. I'm safe, but I need to see Sophia. Meet me at Riverside Elementary School playground at midnight. Come alone, or they'll hurt her. T." Charlotte showed the message to Hayes, who immediately began making calls. This could be a trap, but it might also be our only chance to end this. Walsh might have escaped, or this could be the collective using his phone. What if it really is him? What if he's found a way to stop these people? Hayes studied the message again. "There's only one way to find out, but we're not sending you in alone." Meanwhile, 3 miles away in an abandoned warehouse, Theodore sat tied to a chair, his face bloodied but his eyes still defiant. Marcus Volkov, the collective's enforcer, circled him like a predator, his expensive suit incongruous with the violence in his pale eyes. "Mr. Walsh, you continue to underestimate our reach. We know about your connection to Emily Martinez. We know about the child. The only question is whether you cooperate willingly or we take what we need by force." Theodore spat blood on the concrete floor. "I told you I don't know anything about Emily's forgery work. We lost touch after high school." Volkov smiled coldly and pulled out Theodore's confiscated phone. "Then you won't mind if we send a little message to the grandmother, will you? Something to bring them out of hiding." Theodore's blood ran cold as he watched Volkov type the message. Every instinct screamed that he was leading Sophia and Charlotte into a trap. But what choice did he have? These people had already killed Emily. They wouldn't hesitate to hurt a 7-year-old girl. "You see, Mr. Walsh, Emily was more than just a forger for us. She was documenting our entire operation, creating a detailed record of every transaction, every client, every piece we moved. When she ran, she took that information with her. She's dead. Whatever she knew died with her. But that's where you're wrong. Volkov leaned closer, his breath reeking of expensive cologne and cigarettes. We believe she hid the evidence somewhere only her daughter could find it. Children see things differently than adults. They remember details we miss. The horrible truth crashed over Theodore like a wave. They didn't just want to eliminate loose ends. They needed Sophia alive, at least long enough to find Emily's hidden evidence. After that, the playground meeting is bait, isn't it? You're planning to take Sophia. Volkov's smile was answer enough. Theodore began working frantically at his bonds, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, a 7-year-old girl was walking into a nightmare that would make her mother's death look merciful. Riverside Elementary School stood eerily silent under the pale moonlight, its empty playground equipment casting long shadows across the asphalt. Charlotte approached the swing set with Deputy Hayes's voice crackling in her hidden earpiece, while Sophia waited in the surveillance van 2 blocks away with Agent Rodriguez. "I see movement near the monkey bars," Hayes whispered through the comm. "Stay alert, Charlotte." Theodore emerged from behind the school building, and Charlotte's breath caught. Even in the dim light, she could see he'd been beaten. He moved carefully, favoring his left side, but his eyes were clear and focused as they met hers across the playground. "Charlotte," he called softly. "Thank God you came. We don't have much time." She approached cautiously, every maternal instinct screaming danger. "Theodore, are you really here willingly? Or is this a trap?" "Both," he admitted, glancing around nervously. "They let me escape, but only because they want me to lead them to Sophia. Charlotte, listen carefully. Emily hid something before she died, something that could destroy the collective entirely." "What kind of something?" "A complete record of their operation. Names, dates, financial records, even photos of their clients receiving forged masterpieces. She was building a case against them, probably planning to go to the FBI. Charlotte felt the pieces clicking together. That's why they killed her. She was going to expose them. And now they think Sophia knows where Emily hid the evidence. They need her alive, but Charlotte..." Theodore's voice broke. "Once they get what they want, they'll kill her. They'll kill all of us." Through her earpiece, Charlotte heard Hayes coordinating with the tactical team. "We have eyes on 3 vehicles approaching from different directions. Charlotte, get out of there now." But before she could move, floodlights blazed to life around the playground, temporarily blinding them both. Black SUVs roared into the parking lot, disgorging armed men in tactical gear. This wasn't a trap. It was a military-style operation. Theodore grabbed Charlotte's arm. "There's a storm drain behind the school. It leads to the old tunnel system under Riverside. Emily showed me years ago when we were kids. We can..." A tranquilizer dart sprouted from Theodore's neck. He staggered, his eyes widening in shock and fury before he collapsed to the asphalt. Charlotte tried to run, but rough hands seized her arms, dragging her toward the waiting vehicles. Marcus Volkov approached, his pale eyes reflecting the harsh floodlights. "Mrs. Martinez, how good to finally meet you. Your granddaughter is safe for now, but her continued well-being depends entirely on your cooperation. What do you want from us?" "Sophia is just a child. A child with a very special gift, we suspect. Emily was clever, hiding her evidence somewhere that only a 7-year-old mind would think to look. Children see the world differently than adults. They notice patterns we miss, remember details we dismiss as insignificant." As they forced Charlotte into an SUV, she caught a glimpse of Deputy Hayes's team moving in from the tree line. Hayes spoke urgently into her radio. "All units, the packages are compromised. Repeat, Charlotte and Walsh are in the wind. Implement Protocol 7 immediately." 2 miles away, Agent Rodriguez watched Sophia through the van's tinted windows. The little girl sat unnaturally still, her dark eyes reflecting an understanding far beyond her years. "Sophia," Rodriguez said gently, "we may need to move you to another safe location. The bad people found your grandmother." But Sophia was already shaking her head. "No, Mommy told me what to do if this happened." She made me memorize something important, but she said I could only tell if the bad people found us. Rodriguez leaned forward, recognizing the shift in Sophia's demeanor. This wasn't a scared child anymore. This was Emily Martinez's daughter, carrying out a plan her mother had set in motion years ago. "What did your mommy tell you, sweetheart?" Sophia's voice was steady, almost adult in its certainty. "She said if anyone came looking for something she hid, I should tell them about the angels. The angels who watch over the art room at my school." The abandoned warehouse reeked of rust and desperation as Theodore slowly regained consciousness. His hands were zip-tied behind a metal chair and his head throbbed from whatever they'd drugged him with. Across the dim space, Charlotte sat similarly restrained, her silver hair disheveled but her eyes blazing with defiance. "Ah, Mr. Walsh, welcome back," Marcus Volkov's cultured voice carried across the concrete floor. "I trust you're feeling more cooperative now that you understand the stakes." Theodore tested his bonds, finding them professionally secured. "Where's Sophia?" "Safe for the moment, but time is running short and my patience grows thin." Volkov approached Theodore with a tablet displaying surveillance photos. These images were taken at various schools across the country. Each one shows a child who knew too much about their parents' activities with our organization. The photos were horrifying in their implications. Children who had simply vanished, leaving behind grieving families and cold case files. Theodore felt his blood turn to ice as he recognized the message: "Cooperate or Sophia would join this gallery of the lost." "You're monsters," Charlotte whispered, her voice thick with rage and fear. "We're businessmen, Mrs. Martinez. Sentiment is a luxury we cannot afford." Volkov set the tablet aside and picked up a cell phone. "However, it seems your granddaughter is more resourceful than we anticipated. She's provided some interesting information about angels watching over the art room." Theodore's mind raced. Emily had always been obsessed with angels, collecting figurines and paintings of them throughout their teenage relationship. But what did Sophia's message mean? "The art room at Riverside Elementary," Volkov continued, "was Emily's former workplace. She volunteered there for 6 months before her death, teaching children to paint. Our associates are investigating the location now." Charlotte's face went pale. Emily did mention working with children. She said it helped her feel closer to her own childhood before everything went wrong. Indeed, and what better hiding place for sensitive documents than a room full of children's innocent artwork? Who would think to look there? 20 minutes away, Agent Rodriguez and Sophia crouched in the elementary school's art room, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The space was exactly as Emily had left it, walls covered with colorful children's paintings, supply closets filled with brushes and paints, and in the corner, a collection of angel figurines that Emily had used to inspire her young students. "Sophia, can you show me which angels your mother meant?" The little girl approached the figurine collection with sure steps, her small fingers tracing over each piece until she found what she was looking for. "This one," she said, lifting a ceramic angel with outstretched wings. "Mommy called her guardian. She said guardian watches over all the important things." Rodriguez carefully took the figurine and immediately noticed it was heavier than it should be. A thin seam ran around the angel's base, invisible unless you knew to look for it. With gentle pressure, the bottom half twisted off, revealing a hollowed interior containing a USB drive. "Smart woman, your mother," Rodriguez murmured, pocketing the drive. "But we need to move fast. If the collective realizes what we found..." The windows exploded inward as black-clad figures rappelled into the art room. Rodriguez shoved Sophia behind an overturned desk and drew her weapon, but they were outnumbered 3-1. Within seconds, both she and Sophia were unconscious from tranquilizer darts. Back at the warehouse, Volkov's phone buzzed with a text message. His pale eyes lit up with satisfaction as he read the update. "Excellent news," he announced to his captives. "We have the child and our associates have recovered what we've been searching for. Mr. Walsh, your federal prosecutor expertise will be invaluable in helping us understand exactly what evidence Emily compiled against our organization." Theodore struggled against his restraints, fury giving him strength he didn't know he possessed. "I'll die before I help you." "Oh, you misunderstand. You'll help us because if you don't, Little Sophia will suffer in ways that would make your worst nightmares seem pleasant. Volkov's smile was arctic in its coldness. Children are so much more fragile than adults, both physically and psychologically. Charlotte made a sound like a wounded animal. Please, she's just a baby. Whatever Emily hid, it's not worth an innocent child's life. Isn't it? The information on that USB drive could send dozens of my clients to prison and cost our organization billions in seized assets. One small girl's life seems a reasonable price to preserve an empire built over decades. As if summoned by his words, two men dragged an unconscious Sophia into the warehouse. Theodore felt something break inside his chest at the sight of her small, limp form. The game was no longer about justice or revenge. It was about saving the life of a 7-year-old girl who might be his daughter, a child whose only crime was being born to a woman brave enough to stand up to monsters. The USB drive's contents illuminated Theodore's laptop screen like digital damnation. Emily's meticulous record stretched back 3 years, documenting every forged masterpiece, every illegal transaction, every powerful client who had purchased stolen culture for their private collections. But it was the final entry, dated just 2 days before her death, that made Theodore's blood run cold. Subject: insurance policy. If you're reading this. I'm dead. But Theodore, if you're seeing this, then you know the truth about Sophia. The DNA test results are in the file labeled Guardian Angel. She's yours, Theodore. She's always been yours. I'm sorry I never told you, but I was protecting you both. The collective doesn't just kill their enemies, they erase their entire bloodlines. I couldn't let them hurt you the way they've hurt so many others. But if something happens to me, promise you'll keep her safe. She's the best part of both of us, and she deserves a chance to grow up knowing love instead of fear. The evidence I've gathered will destroy them, but only if someone with legal authority presents it properly. You're the only prosecutor I trust. Save our daughter, Theodore. Save her and end this nightmare once and for all. All my love forever, Emily. Tears blurred Theodore's vision as he opened the DNA file. The results were unambiguous. 99.97% probability of paternity. Sophia was his daughter, the child he never knew he had, born from a love he'd thought lost forever. Marcus Volkov watched Theodore's reaction with predatory interest. Touching, isn't it? Emily always had a flair for the dramatic. But sentiment aside, Mr. Walsh, you now understand the stakes completely. That little girl isn't just an innocent child, she's your daughter. Your legacy. Your responsibility. Theodore looked across the warehouse where Sophia sat against the far wall, still groggy from the tranquilizer but conscious. When their eyes met, he saw Emily's courage reflected in those dark depths, along with a trust that nearly broke his heart. "What do you want?" Theodore asked, his voice steady despite the chaos in his chest. "Cooperation. You'll use your federal access to discredit this evidence, label it fabricated, ensure it never sees the inside of a courtroom. In exchange, you and your family disappear into new identities, a clean slate for all of you." Charlotte spoke up from her restraints. "And if we refuse?" Volkov's smile was razor thin. "Mrs. Martinez, I don't think you fully comprehend your position. We have eliminated entire families for far less provocation. The only reason you're still breathing is because Mr. Walsh's cooperation saves us considerable trouble." But Theodore was studying the warehouse's layout, counting exits, calculating angles. His prosecutor's mind cataloged every detail while his father's heart planned desperate measures. "I need time to review all the evidence. Some of these documents are complex financial instruments. If I'm going to discredit them properly, I need to understand Emily's methodology." "You have 1 hour," Volkov agreed. "But to ensure your focus remains sharp, your daughter stays where you can see her." As Theodore worked, he began implementing a plan Emily had embedded in her final message. Hidden among the financial records were detailed schematics of the warehouse district, including utility tunnels and emergency exits. Emily had been preparing for this exact scenario, even mapping their current location. Sophia watched her father work, and in her 7-year-old mind, pieces began falling together. The man from the cemetery, the one Grandma Charlotte said might be special, the one who looked at her with eyes full of pain and love and recognition. When Volkov stepped away to take a phone call, Sophia spoke quietly. "Are you my daddy?" Theodore's hand stilled on the keyboard. Their eyes met across 20 feet of concrete and desperation, and he nodded almost imperceptibly. Sophia's response was a smile that could have powered the entire city. "Mommy said you were brave. She said if I ever met you, I should tell you about the angels and the secret door." Theodore's pulse quickened. "What secret door, sweetheart?" "The one behind the angel painting in the art room. It leads to the old tunnels. Mommy showed me in case the bad people came." Sophia's voice was barely a whisper, but her message was clear. Emily hadn't just hidden evidence. She'd prepared an escape route. Theodore resumed typing, but now his fingers moved with purpose. Hidden in his compliance with Volkov's demands, he was actually uploading Emily's complete files to a secure FBI server, along with their current location and a detailed tactical assessment of the collective's operation. Time was running out, but for the first time in 3 days, Theodore Walsh felt something that had been absent since this nightmare began: hope. The FBI tactical team assembled in complete silence 3 blocks from the warehouse district, their black vehicles nearly invisible in the pre-dawn darkness. Special Agent David Martinez, no relation to Charlotte despite the name, coordinated the operation with the precision of someone who had rescued hostages before. "We have confirmation that Walsh successfully uploaded the complete collective files 30 minutes ago," Agent Martinez reported through his comm system. "All evidence is secured with the Bureau, and federal warrants have been issued for 17 individuals, including Marcus Volkov." Detective Cooper, who had insisted on joining the rescue operation, studied the warehouse schematics on his tablet. The thermal imaging shows 5 heat signatures. 3 adults and 2 smaller forms we believe are Sophia and Charlotte. But here's the problem. Volkov's men have rigged the building with explosives. Dead man's switch? Worse, motion-activated charges at all primary exits. If they detect federal presence, the whole building comes down. We're looking at a classic murder-suicide scenario. Inside the warehouse, Theodore pretended to work while secretly watching the digital clock on his laptop. Emily's files had included not just evidence against the collective, but detailed intelligence about their standard operating procedures. They always eliminated witnesses when cornered, preferring to destroy everything rather than face prosecution. Sophia sat quietly against her wall, but Theodore could see she was preparing for something. Every few minutes she glanced toward a section of the warehouse where old steam pipes ran along the ceiling, pipes that, according to Emily's schematics, connected to the tunnel system. "Time's up, mister." "Walsh," Volkov announced, approaching with 2 armed men. "Have you completed your analysis of the evidence?" "Nearly finished, but I've discovered something you need to know. Emily didn't just document your American operations. She was in contact with Interpol agents investigating your European connections." Volkov's face went pale. "That's impossible. We monitored all her communications." "Not all of them. She was using an encrypted art restoration forum to pass information. Every time she discussed cleaning techniques for Renaissance paintings, she was actually transmitting financial data about your money laundering operations. It was a complete fabrication." But Theodore could see doubt creeping into Volkov's cold eyes. The man's paranoia was his weakness, and Theodore was exploiting it ruthlessly. "Show me," Volkov demanded, stepping closer to the laptop. This was the moment Theodore had been preparing for. As Volkov leaned over the screen, Theodore drove his elbow backward into the man's solar plexus with all his strength. Volkov doubled over, gasping, and Theodore rolled backward in his chair, breaking the zip ties against the chair's metal frame. "Sophia, now!" Theodore shouted. The 7-year-old girl moved with surprising speed, scrambling toward the steam pipes exactly as her mother had taught her. Charlotte, despite her age and restraints, threw herself sideways into one of Volkov's men, sending him stumbling. Theodore reached Sophia just as she disappeared into an access panel behind the pipes. The opening was barely large enough for a child, but Emily had planned for this contingency. Theodore could hear Sophia's voice echoing from inside the wall. "Daddy, there's a rope. Mommy left a rope." Gunfire erupted behind them as Volkov's remaining men opened fire. Theodore pulled himself into the access tunnel just as bullets sparked off the metal pipes where his head had been. The space was impossibly tight, designed for maintenance access rather than human passage. But Emily's rope guided them through the darkness. They emerged into the storm drain system beneath Riverside, exactly where Emily's escape plan had predicted. Sophia was crying now, but silently, the way children cry when they know noise means danger. "Are we safe now, Daddy?" she whispered. Theodore pulled his daughter close, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. "Not yet, sweetheart, but we're going to be. Your mommy made sure of that." Above them, the warehouse erupted in flames as Volkov activated his final contingency. But Charlotte Martinez, despite being 75 years old and terrified beyond measure, had managed to crawl to safety through the same tunnel that had saved her granddaughter. The collective's reign of terror was ending in fire and sirens, but in the darkness below the city, a father held his daughter for the first time, and love proved stronger than fear. 6 months later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of Theodore's suburban home as Sophia carefully arranged her art supplies on the kitchen table. At 7.5, she had her mother's artistic eye and her father's methodical approach to problem-solving. "What are you painting today, sweetheart?" Theodore asked, setting down her favorite breakfast, pancakes with strawberries arranged like flowers, the way Emily used to make them according to Charlotte's stories. "Angels," Sophia replied without hesitation. "But happy angels this time. Angels who protect families instead of hiding secrets." Theodore's throat tightened with emotion. The past 6 months had been a journey of healing for all of them, but Sophia's resilience continued to amaze him. She'd started therapy immediately after the rescue, and Dr. Rebecca Chen had worked miracles in helping a traumatized child process everything she'd endured. Charlotte appeared in the kitchen doorway, moving more slowly since her heart surgery, but with eyes brighter than they'd been in years. "Good morning, you two. Are we still planning to visit Mommy today?" "Yes, Grandma Charlotte. Daddy said we could bring her new flowers and tell her about my report card." Theodore smiled, watching his daughter's matter-of-fact acceptance of their new family structure. The DNA test had been legally confirmed, and he'd gained full custody with Charlotte as a devoted grandmother figure. They'd decided to keep Emily's memory alive through stories, photographs, and these regular cemetery visits that had become healing rituals rather than sources of trauma. "Before we go," Theodore said, sitting beside Sophia, "I have some news to share. The last of the collective members was sentenced yesterday. Mr. Volkov got life in prison without parole, and all of Mommy's art evidence helped the FBI recover over 200 stolen masterpieces." Sophia looked up from her painting, her dark eyes serious. "Does that mean the bad people can't hurt other families anymore?" "That's exactly what it means. Your Mommy's brave work saved a lot of people, sweetheart. She was a hero." Charlotte joined them at the table, her weathered hands gentle as she helped Sophia mix colors. "Your Mommy would be so proud of how brave you've been, little one, and she'd be thrilled that you and your daddy found each other." Theodore watched them work together, 3 generations connected by love, loss, and an unbreakable determination to create something beautiful from tragedy. His federal prosecutor career had taken a new direction since the case. He now specialized in art crimes and human trafficking, using Emily's investigative techniques to build cases against other criminal organizations. "Daddy," Sophia said suddenly, "I had a dream about Mommy last night. She wasn't sad anymore. She was painting in a place full of light, and she said to tell you thank you. Thank you for what? For keeping me safe, for loving her even when she was scared, for being the daddy she always knew you could be." Theodore felt tears threaten, but they were tears of gratitude rather than grief. Emily's sacrifice had given him the greatest gift imaginable, the chance to know and love their daughter. Every day with Sophia was a miracle Emily had died to ensure. The doorbell rang, interrupting the peaceful morning. Theodore opened it to find Detective Cooper, now a family friend, holding a large envelope. "Special delivery," Cooper grinned. "The final settlement from the recovered art sales. The FBI has established a trust fund for Sophia's education using the collective's seized assets. She'll never want for anything, and there's enough left over to establish the Emily Martinez Foundation for Art Therapy and Children's Trauma Recovery." Theodore shook his head in amazement. Even in death, Emily continued to protect and provide for their daughter. That afternoon, as they stood together at Emily's grave, Theodore placed fresh roses by the headstone while Sophia arranged the small angel figurine she'd painted that morning. The cemetery held no terror now, only peace and the quiet presence of love that transcends death. "I love you, Mommy," Sophia whispered to the headstone. "Thank you for bringing me the best daddy in the world." Theodore knelt beside his daughter, one hand on her shoulder, the other tracing Emily's name carved in marble. "And thank you for giving me the most amazing daughter I could have imagined. We're going to be okay, Emily. All of us, I promise." As they walked back to the car, Sophia slipped her small hand into Theodore's large one. "Daddy, are we a real family now?" Theodore squeezed her fingers gently, thinking of all the families that came in different shapes and sizes, all the love that survived tragedy, all the hope that emerges from even the darkest circumstances. "Sweetheart, we've always been a real family. We just didn't know it yet." The summer wind carried their laughter across the cemetery, where Emily's grave marker caught the afternoon sun, no longer a symbol of loss but a testament to love's enduring power to heal, protect, and create new beginnings from the ashes of the past. In the distance, Charlotte watched them from the car, her heart full of gratitude for second chances, found families, and the mysterious ways that love conquers even the deepest darkness. Sophia had her father at last. Theodore had discovered the daughter who made his life complete. And Emily's legacy lived on in the joy of those she'd died to protect. The story that began with a 7-year-old girl's terrifying discovery in a cemetery had become a testament to the unbreakable bonds of family, the courage of mothers, and the healing power of truth finally set free.